The year is 1944. World War II is raging, but in a quiet corner of New Hampshire, a different kind of battle is unfolding. This one involves not tanks and troops, but ideas and economics. At the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, delegates from 44 nations gather. They share a common goal to prevent another global economic disaster like the Great Depression. Out of this historic meeting emerges the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. Think of it as a global financial firefighter, always on call to prevent and respond to economic crises. The IMF was designed to be a safety net for the world's economies. The architects of Bretton Woods understood the devastating consequences of economic instability. They had witnessed firsthand how the Depression had fueled nationalism, protectionism, and ultimately, war. Their aim was to create a system that would foster international cooperation and prevent history from repeating itself. At its heart, the IMF is all about stability. Its primary mission? To ensure the smooth functioning of the international monetary system. This system is like the plumbing of the global economy, facilitating the flow of trade and investment. One way the IMF does this is by promoting exchange rate stability. Imagine a world where currencies fluctuate wildly from day to day. Chaos. Businesses wouldn't know what to charge, and international trade would grind to a halt. The IMF helps prevent this chaos. Another key role of the IMF is to provide a forum for international cooperation on economic matters. It's like a global town hall where finance ministers and central bankers can come together to discuss challenges, share best practices, and coordinate policies. This collaborative approach is crucial in an interconnected world. Problems in one country can quickly spill over into others. The IMF helps to contain these spillover effects and prevent them from spiraling into global crises. The IMF is best known for its role as a crisis responder. When a country experiences a financial meltdown, the IMF is often the first call for help. Think of it as the financial equivalent of the Red Cross. Over the decades, the IMF has been involved in numerous high-profile rescues. The Latin American debt crisis of the 1980s, the Asian financial crisis of the 1990s, and the Russian financial crisis of 1998. In each of these crises, the IMF provided emergency loans to stabilize economies. Imagine a country facing a severe balance of payments crisis. Its currency is plummeting, its foreign reserves are dwindling, and it's on the verge of defaulting on its debts. This is where the IMF steps in as a lender of last resort. The IMF provides loans to member countries facing balance of payments difficulties. These loans act as a financial lifeline, giving countries breathing room to stabilize their economies and implement necessary reforms. The IMF doesn't just hand out blank checks, however. It attaches conditions to its loans to ensure that the money is used wisely and that the recipient country takes steps to address the underlying problems that led to the crisis. These conditions, often referred to as conditionality, have been a subject of much debate. Critics argue that they can be too stringent, forcing countries to adopt policies that are harmful to their economies and citizens. The IMF has responded to these criticisms by making its lending conditions more flexible and tailored to individual country circumstances. Section 5. From fixed to floating, navigating a shifting landscape. The IMF has had to adapt to a constantly evolving global economy. One of the most significant changes occurred in the early 1970s with the collapse of the Bretton Woods system. Under this system, the value of most currencies was pegged to the US dollar. The move to floating exchange rates presented new challenges for the IMF. It had to find new ways to promote exchange rate stability. The IMF also had to grapple with the rise of globalization. Financial crises could spread more rapidly and have far-reaching consequences. This required the IMF to become more proactive in its surveillance. Another major challenge has been the growing importance of emerging market economies. These economies have become major players in recent decades. The IMF has had to adjust its governance structure and lending practices to reflect this new reality. Section 6. Controversy and criticism, a force for good or ill. The IMF's track record is not without its blemishes. The institution has faced criticism over the years for its handling of various crises, its lending practices, and its governance structure. One of the most common criticisms is that the IMF's structural adjustment programs often imposed as a condition for loans, can exacerbate poverty and inequality in developing countries. Critics argue that these programs often prioritize austerity measures and market liberalization over social safety nets and poverty reduction. Another criticism is that the IMF's decision-making process is undemocratic, with too much power concentrated in the hands of wealthy countries. Critics point to the fact that voting power within the IMF is based on a country's economic size, giving richer countries a disproportionate influence. The IMF has acknowledged some of these criticisms and has taken steps to address them. For example, it has made efforts to reform its lending practices to be more sensitive to the social impact of its policies. It has also sought to give developing countries a greater voice in its governance structure. Section 7. Adapting to a New World, the Evolving Role of the IMF. The IMF has shown a remarkable ability to adapt to changing global circumstances. It has taken on new challenges such as climate change, pandemics, and digital currencies. The COVID-19 pandemic posed an unprecedented challenge to the global economy. The IMF responded swiftly, providing emergency financing and debt relief. It has recognized the threat of climate change and its potential to destabilize the global economy. The IMF is working with member countries to promote green and sustainable growth. Digital currencies present both opportunities and challenges for the IMF. They can make cross-border payments faster and cheaper, but they also pose risks to financial stability and could facilitate illicit activities. The IMF is developing a regulatory framework to balance innovation with stability. Section 8. The Future of Global Finance, the IMF's continuing relevance. As the global economy becomes increasingly interconnected, the need for a strong and effective IMF will only grow. The institution will continue to play a vital role in preventing and managing financial crises, promoting international monetary cooperation, and fostering global financial stability. The IMF is not without its critics, and it will need to continue to adapt and reform to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world. However, its core mission of promoting global economic stability remains as relevant today as it was in the aftermath of World War II. The world faces numerous economic challenges in the 21st century, from climate change to inequality to the rise of new technologies. The IMF, with its global reach and expertise, will be a crucial player in navigating these challenges and ensuring a more stable and prosperous future for all.